Sure, my name is Andrew. I volunteer with the Museum of American Armor, where this vehicle is housed. I'm representing the driver of this Renault FT. It is not the first tank of the war, of the First World War, but it is the tank that inspired pretty much all modern tank designs. Its crew compartments is separate from the engine, which is different from designs of the period. It's got a fully traversable turret, and it's a fully tracked vehicle. The French actually made the most tanks in the First World War, far surpassing England and Germany by quite a few. And the U.S. had designed a similar tank, not designed, but they had a licensed copy called the Model 1917, which wasn't ready in time for the war, so the U.S. actually received about 200 of these, which is why it's housed at the Museum of American Armor. These tanks were far cheaper to make than the contemporary tanks, the Schneider, the Saint-Chamond, much smaller and required far less crew. So the idea was to send 5 or 6 tanks through for the same cost of 1 or 2. They were expecting the tanks to be lost in combat or bogged down or broken down, so it was more practical to send smaller, lighter tanks through the enemy lines. So I wouldn't say tanks were credited with winning the First World War, but they definitely played a significant role in breaking the lines towards the end.
What size cannon did that mount?
So this actually isn't a cannon. This is a machine gun. They would mount generally would mount an 8mm Hotchkiss machine gun. Some models did mount a 37mm, a short 37, but the majority of Renault FTs actually had a machine gun rather than a cannon.
And how was it a 2-man crew? Was it a 3-man crew?
Yeah, it's a 2-man crew. So you would just have a driver up front, and then you'd have your commander standing up behind the driver. Commander would act as not only tank commander, but as the loader and the gunner of the tank. He'd communicate with the driver. This is pre-radio. Well, radios existed, but they weren't in tanks. So he would communicate with the driver by actually kicking him in the shoulder, various commands, hitting him on either shoulder for steering, stop and go. Can't really hear over the tank's engine and the battlefield.
Was there a limited amount of mileage on this? I mean, how could they go in a tank full of gas?
Right, so they weren't exactly transported, they didn't go by themselves from battlefield to battlefield. They were primarily transported by truck, which is the advantage of the FT over the other contemporary tanks is you can put this on the back of a truck rather than having to load it by rail, which really made it a more mobile implement for the war. It was a lot more successful than the other heavier tanks because they required a lot more logistics to transport them. They wouldn't go very far or very fast on a single tank of gas, but that wasn't really the goal. They were going across a couple hundred meters of no man's land. Wouldn't go very fast either.
Thank you.
You got it.